Hey, Vanessa. Ronnie said just go on ahead without him. I'll hop on when he's able.
Okay, perfect. Well, good afternoon, everybody. You're joining us for the Richmond Highway Bus Rapid Transit Executive Committee meeting. This is our number 12, and today is July 12th, 2021. And I think, Ron, why don't you do roll call before we get started?
Sure. Yep. I'm going to call out the names of the executive committee members. Supervisor Stork. I know you're here. Okay, and Supervisor Lusk, we'll keep an eye out and see if he joins us. Monica Backman. I saw her go through. If you can. I'll come back to you, Monica. Okay.
Thank you.
John Lynch.
Well, good afternoon.
Okay. Jennifer Mitchell.
Here, good afternoon.
Barbara Byron.
Here, thank you.
Tom Pashadny.
I'm here, thank you.
Okay.
And I think Monica did answer after Ron. I don't know if you got that.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah,
Okay,
I
good.
checked my fire.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, everybody. Let me go to the agenda slide here. So we can.
Vanessa, just
Sure.
can you make sure we let people know that we're recording and
Yeah.
please?
Thank you. Yes, this meeting is being recorded and it will be posted after. So, and I think if we have, at least for the committee members, we're taking questions, but if we have anybody else joining from the public, we do ask that you use the Q&A chat, the Q&A function so we can answer any questions, and we will do those at the end. Robin, did I miss anything?
No, you didn't. Not wrong. Okay.
Thank you. Apologies. So again, here's our agenda. We're going to give you a quick project update. So we'll talk about public involvement, NEPA status, our ongoing FTA coordination, right-of-way acquisition. We want to focus today on roadway and progress and how we're doing with that, and then end with a 12-month outlook and then open it up for discussion. So first one, public involvement. We did have a meeting June 30th. And we opened up our preliminary design, I guess, for a comment period. So from June, that was continuous from June 11th to July 30th. I'm sorry, July 9th. We do have an interactive map that is available, and we have been welcoming comments up to this deadline of July 9th. The meeting has now been posted online. We had about 70 registered attendees. We followed up with the Q&A. And we did just an overview of the project again for this meeting, really focusing on our roadway design and overview. You can, again, at the bottom you see here is the link to on the project website where you can find the presentation if anyone wanted to listen. I think, and the last thing to note on there is we are going to come back to the community and have what we're calling community charm conversations. And this is specifically what we're doing at stations. So realizing that every station area is a little different from each other, we want to bring out and highlight that community charm or those elements for those areas. NEPA status, we're still in our opening or closing, trying to close up our Section 106 process. We have received a conditional no adverse effect from the Department of Historic Resources, which is moving in the right direction. We also have received, and we talked about this last time, a formal objection from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Since that, we have been working with our Federal Transit Administration partners to garner a response for the National Trust that has been provided to the National Trust, and we are just right now awaiting further guidance or another correspondence back from them. On the FTA side, we've responded to comments for our categorical exclusion and our technical reports. So those are all under review from FTA. And right now we're just kind of waiting for them to do the final review and are looking for a final signature on our environmental document later this summer. FTA coordination. We wanted to bring this up. We have, as we all know, we've been accepted into New Start's project development. This happened back in March of 2020. And if you look at the Federal Transit Administration's fiscal year report for 2022, we are now listed on there. which is great. And you can see the highlight here at the bottom. There are 2 projects that entered. One, of course, was us, and the second was the Chicago Red Line Extension. So if you look at that report, you are able to see us now. Later this fall or late this fall, we do intend to request entry into engineering, which is the second phase that we need to continue on for the Federal Transit Administration's New Starts grant program. As part of the request, we'll have to include, you can see these various lists of documents. So we'll have to have our environmental document completed. We'll turn in our 30% design plans, our project management plan, a cost estimate, progress or on any third-party agreements that we have that we'll talk a little bit more about, our financial plan, and our preliminary project rating, which actually has to do with the Federal Transit Administration's New Starts grant program. So every project that is in queue for New Starts project does need to have a project rating. We again, we continue going on ongoing coordination meetings with them on a monthly basis. And later this summer, FT will actually be bringing an oversight consultant for the project. This is also a necessary step that they do to make sure that as the project sponsor are doing the things that we're supposed to do to go through the New Starts process. Right-of-way acquisition, just a quick update here. That'll obviously start after our environmental document is completed, and priority 1 is going to be full acquisitions. 2 properties that have been approved for early acquisition by Federal Transit Administration. We currently have appraisals underway. We are working on our demolition planning and procurement plan, which is also underway. We will continue to obviously coordinate and communicate with any stakeholders, developers, or public property owners, and which we kind of, again, always have information on them, which we featured during our June 30th meeting. I guess as a reminder, we know that each acquisition is unique, and we are looking to have individual discussions with any affected property owner and or tenant. And we do have our available maps, so you can kind of see the impacts. You can click on the link here and they'll take you to our website. So we talked about this again in October and November of last year, and we're doing this again in June 30th, just to remind everybody that, you know, on our maps, here's an example of them. You can kind of see where the impacts are. There are various types of impacts. We have total acquisitions, partials, perpetual easements, or even temporary construction easements that are needed. And again, we are, as the response or as meetings come in, we are scheduling meetings with affected property owners on a request. And so that was one of the things that we mentioned during our June 30th meeting. And we have been getting some of these property owners being requested to meet with us. And so we're putting them in queue to meet with them. We wanted to talk a little bit about roadway design modifications. Since we've been sharing the design back in the 20%, so I think we did that in 2019, we've of course been continuously collecting these comments and refining these design. During our June 30th meeting, we did share some where the changes or the modifications have occurred. So here's our list. Fortson Road, we were looking to maybe close one of the intersections there, and we've through public comment, we've left that open, so they will continue to operate as it does today. Fairhaven regrading, we've been able to pull back some of the regrading efforts to limit those impacts. The same thing can be said about A&A rentals. This is a property that's towards the northern part of the corridor that was actually a former, the first fire station for Fairfax County, back then known as the PennDOT Fire Station. So that is now considered a historic property. We've been able to completely pull off of that property. The St. Louis Catholic Church, Walsh Hall. We were also looking at grading limits since we're going up the hill. We've been able to pull off of those so that there's no impacts to Walsh Hall. Collard Street, we had the similar situation. And then finally at the Boswell Avenue sidewalk, we've been listening to the community. They've had some concerns over some impacts specifically to some properties. So we've been able to pull off and kind of minimize some of those efforts along that sidewalk. So today we also want to talk about the preliminary design endorsement. But before we go into those details, I guess we just wanted to remind everyone that this project generally includes 6 general purpose lanes. So we have, you can see in the graphic at the bottom, we are looking to have 3 lanes in each direction. We have a transit way that's running down the median or the center of the roadway with 9 BRT stations, and of course, continuous sidewalks and cycle tracks on either side of the road. That pretty much composes the BRT project, or the design, right, of the BRT project in general. So these plans have been out and available for the public. And during our public comment period, again, that was open from June 11th to July 9th, though we're still going through comments, we just kind of wanted to bring it to the committee's attention here to talk about some of the comments that we're listening or hearing to. So to date, we've had 106 public comments. You can see most of them, or about 50% of them, were questions related to the design or operation of the system. But overall, they didn't state whether they were in support or objection of the project. Some of these comments, when we started looking at them into categories, whether they be utilities, roadway width, crossing safety, we had a couple comments that were tied to the speed limit, as to sound walls, lane width, cost, and property impact. And these are just some of, again, the higher level of categories of comments that we're listening to. The next big percentage was 32% of these comments were actually stated and directed as direct support for the project, which was good news. And then we only had about 15% of those 106 state direct opposition. So as we continue to refine the design, we will obviously work to mitigate property impacts or wherever possible. But today what we're asking is we want to seek your concurrence or your support to make the recommendation that the full Board of Supervisors endorse the preliminary design plans. Our goal is to take this to the July 27th board public meeting. So, but before we go on, I guess I'll kind of take a minute back and see if anyone has any questions or comments on the information that we've shared today.
And Vanessa, can you go back to the slide that has the list of the areas that you've been working on to refine, please?
Absolutely.
So if anybody has any questions about any of these 6 or 7 areas and wants to see more detail, we can certainly do that. But largely, we've been trying to reduce impacts on all of those areas.
I have a question, or sometimes I've lost track. I know I've seen these and we've discussed these before. Were they part of a public meeting that was for the general community? Okay.
Yes. So we, some of these are older, so we've been sharing these, in late 2020, but more effectively, we brought this all to the package during our June 30th meeting. So we took a minute and kind of showed a before and after map so that the public can kind of get a better sense of what was proposed before and after. We kind of took another look at refining the design. We were able to pull back and kind of, make those areas smaller for impacts.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I guess to add to that, some like the St. Louis, Fortson Road, Collard, those were comments that we've gotten even from beforehand. And so as we move forward with design, and even though we're seeking your endorsement today, that doesn't mean we will stop doing those refinements. That's one of the big things, right? That we'll continue doing, knowing that we're only at 30%, we have a ways to go. So we'll continue to do all those mitigations and those refinements. Okay, if there's no other comments or questions on any of this, I think we'd like to get a motion, and you can see for the BRT Executive Committee to make the recommendation that the full Board of Supervisors endorse the preliminary design.
So moved, right, Supervisor Stark?
Second, Jennifer Mitchell.
All right, thank you.
So we need to take a vote then, Vanessa.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Do we have any opposed?
Any abstentions? Okay, I think you're good, Vanessa.
Thank you. Okay, so now that we're past our 30%, we want to continue obviously advancing design. So our next major milestone is going to be 60%. We've already, our consultant's already up and running, and it was approved in May of 2021. So that work to start was approved in May. So following the BOS endorsement of our preliminary design, again, we'll work to continue to refine any comments that would be needed from the design or anything that we've been working on. You can see here the list. Here's an area specifically that we want to look into or continue refining. So roadway and intersection, we continue to work on our stormwater management and drainage, bicycle and pedestrian design, making sure that those are all safe amenities, and finally any cost saving opportunities that we can find for the project. We did want to touch this, and we touched upon this during our June 30th meeting and bring it to your attention, as we do have potential noise wall locations. These have been identified using federal and VDOT guidelines, and you can see they're identified here below into this right-hand corner. Here's where we've identified them on our maps. The locations have unchanged or have not changed since our 20% plans. These wall designs will be refined as the project approaches construction, so we don't know any big details about them, and that's something that we'll continue to do at a future date. And obviously the most important thing is to continue working with the property owners and tenants who could be affected or benefited from the walls as identified on the plans. If anyone wants further information specifically on we have on VDOT or the noise abatement procedure, that we have the link here at the bottom with the roll map. I'm sorry, the website at the bottom, or you can just click the link to the left.
And Vanessa, just again for the record, because until I see these disappear off of our plans, the noise walls have to remain here because of federal law, but my understanding it's mostly a function of if the speed limit is reduced to 35, then I don't know if it's expectation or the requirement for a noise wall or that to be allowed could go away. So I just want to continue to have this in the record because frankly, in the end, I'm not going to support something that has noise walls on there. So if we continue to design it in and we get to the last point, they're not going to get my support, and I can't speak for others. But so I'm not sure how we need to do that, but I think there needs to be some qualifier, some statement in here, something in here that identifies what that what that process is that would potentially have it be removed from the design.
I think and Doug, if you want to, Doug Miller, you're more in tune, I guess is the correct word, to the noise wall process. But yes, that's something we can continue discussing, and especially, like I said, specifically with the property owners or these tenants that are being that have identified in specifically, and I think it is Kings Village Road. We can work with them.
Well, there's several locations where that's a potentiality, at least as, and maybe this is not the BRT side, maybe it's all VDOT.
Correct.
But again, I would say that my objections will be the same and have been the same with all parts. So is there not some way to identify that consideration which is ongoing? Or I think there needs to be something in the plans and in the minutes of the meeting that reflect not only my views, but also what's being done to that potentially would result in those being not part of the final plans.
So
Vanessa, would you like me to make some
ahead.
clarifications?
Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Supervisor Stork, I just wanted to make a couple of clarifications. These noise walls are required by the Federal Transit Administration as a part of our environmental impact studies. noise is considered an environmental impact. And so we're
Just save us
required.
all time. Just saves, I've heard those explanations before. I understand that process. And so I guess I get all that. I'm just looking to make sure the record reflects at some level how that might get changed, or if in fact, if you're telling me this is going to remain regardless, then I guess I need to get busy and address that in some other way to ensure that they're not part of the final plans.
It's it'll be a part of our final NEPA document that the Federal Transit Administration signs off on. And the conditions in that NEPA document are going to be a prerequisite to our receipt of federal funding. So that's about as much as I can say at this point. The noise walls are still proposed, and ultimately it'll be the affected residents or the property owners that will ultimately vote whether or not those walls are going to be constructed.
That wasn't my understanding. If the speed limit is 35 or below, is that not correct?
So the speed may have some impact on the noise walls, and we have requested that VDOT do a speed study to consider lowering the speed. As you know, the pandemic has kind of changed travel patterns and things like that. However, we do anticipate that with school going back into session in the fall, in September, late August, early September, that VDOT will be able to finally collect data, useful data, to allow them to do the speed study. So that is still out there, and VDOT has started to do some of the preliminary work to prepare for that noise study. And then we'll have to see, first of all, what the conclusion is, which we're all hoping that the conclusion is that the speed can be reduced. And at that point, we would potentially go in and do a update of the environmental document. So that's kind of the process that we have to go through, but we need the speed study first, because right now everything is based on the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. So
Tom,
we'll have to see.
Tom, this is Eric. Just quick, just to add to that. When we get into the design phase, we will also be doing another noise study as a follow-up as well. So if the speed limit is lowered and there's a reduction of sound impact, that would be picked up as we're moving into the final design phase. So we may not actually have to amend the NEPA document because it's a lesser impact.
I think the community, because this becomes a public document, and I can assure you, and Tom, you know this because you've heard it as many times as I have, that there at least needs to be some note about how that could change, if other things change, but.
Right. So that's the second part of what I was going to say, is we can work on the board item to include some language that talks about reevaluation of the noise walls based on potential change in the speed. So we can include that language.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And so here we just want to take a minute and talk about our 12-month outlook. I think we've talked a little about this, but this is just our plan for or what we're going to be working on for the next 12 months. So our value engineering review, which is another requirement for the New Starts programming, we're looking for a Board of Supervisors design endorsement, and the plans also in late July. Categorical exclusion, of our NEPA. This is for environmental document, our categorical exclusion. We're looking for a signature. We're anticipating later this summer. Some of the things for the fall will be branding. We'll come back and talk about what the system is going to be named and how our plan is to roll that out. Our actual request to enter Federal Transit Administration's engineering, which again is this phase 2. Right-of-way acquisition and demolition. That is the prereq work is underway, obviously, but we won't start acquiring any properties until our environmental document is completed. We talked about our 60% roadway and station design milestone, which we're anticipating about early 2022. Our third-party coordination has been underway and ongoing, and we just wanted to really quickly, one of our the biggest third-party agreement that we're going to be getting into is obviously with the Virginia Department of Transportation. And we're anticipating or looking for a programmatic agreement to be between our agencies, hopefully for the fall of this year. And we just wanted to note that, VDOT has been very helpful and working with us diligently to make this big milestone, since this is a big program overall right now. It's not just BRT, but also we have to look at the widening project that also encompasses the corridor. This has been and will be one of the bigger agreements that we have to get into. And again, we're doing a programmatic, which is just overall for the corridor and moving forward. Utility coordination has been underway. We've been reaching out to various utility companies, trying to establish not only those relationships, those easements, and also to start the design for the relocation. And finally, we are looking at electric bus technology. We're currently on, and a report is underway and ongoing. We look to have that completed in early 2022. So that's our big 12-month next big steps that we're looking onto for the project. Again, I think one of the bigger milestones is that we'll get to a 60% completion in early 22, but also move into the second stage for the new starts grant application for Federal Transit Administration. And that again is going to be later this fall.
Vanessa, it's Barbara. Can I
Hey,
ask you a question about that slide? Hi.
Oh, sure.
So you have value engineering down for July 2021. Does that mean it's happened already or it's starting?
It's about to start. It'll start end of July, so in the next week or so.
So with all due respect to the engineers or whatever on the call, that's always a frightening term to me. Do you anticipate any reductions in any of the amenities that we have for the project? We spent a lot of time on things like the walls. Maybe this is not part of your project, but there's a lot that we spend a lot of time on to make this the best project we can make it for the county. So do you anticipate that there will be much that comes out of value engineering?
Not really. I guess if you're looking at the cross section, you want to answer, Tom?
The answer, Barbara, is no. And so what we will hear from value engineering is a whole bunch of ideas that independent people looking at the project will suggest, but ultimately we decide which ideas we would then subsequently incorporate into the project. And we're not going to incorporate anything into the project that goes back on any of the commitments we've made to our sister agencies or the community or to the supervisors. So could there be a recommendation like, oh, you could save a lot of money if you combine the bike lane and the sidewalk? Great, you could save a lot of money, but we're not going to do that because we've already decided that we're not going to do that. So the answer is no, that we are not anticipating and we are not going to agree to any value engineering that negatively impacts the agreements that we have with everybody for the projects to this point.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I agree. This is Eric. I just want to support that. Well, first of all, this is a requirement of the federal process, so we do have to go through it, and it is independent. So the good thing is we are looking, obviously, for any way that we can possibly save money. So there may be some good ideas that come out of it, and certainly want to look at those if there are some good suggestions. But we go through this with every project that has federal funding, and as Tom said, if there are recommendations that really don't fit the purpose and need or the objectives of our original design, we don't have to accept them.
Right. But good question. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? And frankly, the next slide was a discussion. So we I'll open it back up. And if there's anything that anyone wants to go back to, I'm more than happy to do that.
Could you talk a little bit about what you're looking at in the electric bus technology review?
Sure. Or was someone else going to chime in? No? Okay. So just, what it would take, I guess, in general for us to make this whole fleet electric. the cost, the generations for the O&M side, what would need to change. And I'm sorry, I don't have more the specific examples, but those are the three key big ones that we're looking at. That, and then just timing. If we were to do this, how much time would it take to implement? And really, this is, I guess, more for the O&M side, since we know that facility itself where we're operating, maintaining the vehicles, we know what else will have to be updated.
Yeah, so there's two parts to this. There's, of course, there's the vehicle procurement and the cost of purchasing electric buses, which we know is more than the conventional buses that we currently purchase. And as Vanessa mentioned, there's also the infrastructure. We've had people asking questions about would we provide, for example, inline charging, or would we have charging stations at the ends of the project, the terminal ends of the project? So the answer is we don't know. That's what we're studying. But we have to decide where the infrastructure needs to go in and how much it's going to cost and how much overall capital is going to be added to the project. And then, of course, there's the life cycle, O&M and maintenance and operations of both the assets and the rolling stock as well. So by the time we're done, we'll have a better assessment of what it costs both to buy the vehicles and then to add the hard infrastructure costs to support them, and then the long-term O&M, which is an FTA requirement. The one challenge, of course, is our facilities, Huntington and other facilities, have not been equipped for electric charging, but our transit, Tom, and you can probably add more to this than I have, but I believe our transit group is looking at long-term what it would take to switch the entire fleet over to electric.
Yes, the board has set a goal that our entire fleet would be electric by 2035, and we've, as staff, have indicated that we're going to try and do it more quickly than that.
Yeah.
The BRT buses give us a good opportunity to make a big dent in that. So the idea of the study is just to look at the ins and outs of it. It's not a specifically exclusive dollars and cents issue. There are other benefits to the community of having electric buses. And in addition to that, there are savings on the operation and maintenance side because they're much simpler to maintain. So that's kind of the approach. The study's been underway for several months now, just to kind of scope out all the things that would be needed to do this. But unless there's some fatal flaw, it's our intent to move forward with the electric buses. Does that help, Jennifer?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Any more questions? You want to go back and talk about any topic? Okay. Well, with that, I guess I would just say we'll probably come back and get this group together maybe in the September, October timeframe. We hope to come back and have a little more information, like again on the branding, maybe show you some updated station design and kind of what we're thinking for the community charm parts of this for each individual station area. And again, also, if there's anybody else who wants to propose other topics, feel free to reach out to me. We can also put those on the agenda so we can make sure we hit any points of interest that any of the group might have.
Thank you, Vanessa. When's this supposed to go to the board as an information item, or how is it getting presented to them?
As an action item on the 27th of July.
Okay, thank you.
And Aaron, if you could just let Supervisor Less know that if he would like us to meet with him separately, just to kind of go over this, we certainly can do that. And John Lynch, from your perspective, if you would like to have a more detailed briefing overall, your team has been very engaged and very active in the project, but we're happy to give you an updated briefing if that's helpful for you.
All right, thank you, Tom. I'll let you know.
We'll tell the supervisor. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, and with that, thank you, Tom. And I guess that concludes our meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
So can we call in our next meeting? Is that just with you?
No, it's with, there's a couple of different people that'll be in there. So there's a new Teams invitation for that.
Okay.
So we'll talk to you in about 15 minutes, I guess.